Dear friends, welcome to the Wendy Love Ed Show Season 5, Episode 2, sponsored by Caris Healthcare, the RELEVNT app, and 131 Inclusion Gallery. Cannabis patient success stories are some of my favorite stories to hear and to tell. So I gathered some cannabis patients together into one episode to tell their stories of improved health and wellness through using the cannabis plant as their medicine. So let's talk about cannabis patient success stories. Sit back and get ready to be inspired. Love, Wendy.
Got music and movies, friends and medicine. Yeah, is a show for me and you, the one you love to listen to. And ooh, you got your friends, see it through. See, 'cause laughter is medicine too. Said it's medicine too, babe.
Welcome to Episode 2 in Season 5. My co-host today is the creator and host of Canna Corner and the founder of the Texas chapter of the Human Solution International. Welcome to the show, Candace Dyer.
Hi, Wendy. I'm so happy to be here. I have been looking forward to this all month.
Oh, wonderful. I'm happy you're here too. I love connecting with you. And I'm wearing my rose-colored glasses today.
I love them.
Thank you, because we're talking about patient successes, and it gives me so much hope hearing these stories.
Definitely.
Yeah. And we're patients too. So Candace, how did you come to cannabis, as a patient?
Well, I guess like most people, I just was a teenager trying cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a teenager, I had PTSD, but I didn't know what to call it. Like, I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I was smoking with my friends, I noticed that it calmed me down. It helped me focus. It just was better for me.
Sure.
But I was still in that pharmaceutical. They stuck me on those when I was real young. I was on 3 Xanax a day.
Wow.
I took
Oh my
100
gosh.
milligrams. Yes, I took 100 milligrams of trazodone, Seroquel, Paxil. Like, they had me on all these different pharmaceuticals. And
I think that's really common with kids today, especially that many children are on have a pill box like what used to be for an old person. Yes. Right? And yes. I don't know how well they're really doing with it. Was it helpful to you, do you think?
Well, I thought it was then, but then I've got an addictive personality. I become addicted to anything that I mess with. So I got really dependent on them. Mm-hmm. I wasn't taking them like I was supposed to. I would run out, like I'd have that prescription. I'd run out like probably within a week of getting it. Like,
oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be honest, like,
well, these pills are addictive, right. It's part of what, if you read the insert, for Xanax or any of those drugs for mental health, they are addictive. So, right. It's hard to fight against that, especially if that's a part of you. But for anyone, for anybody,
Yeah, they tell you straight up, you will become dependent on this.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not addicted to it, you still have to be weaned off of that.
Right.
Or you will have withdrawals. Like, and the doctors know this. Like, they'll tell you straightforward. Mm-hmm. But I noticed, like, when I got a little older and started realizing that Xanax was destroying my life. Like, mm-hmm. it was making me not care about things I should. That just making me not be able to remember, like, things mm-hmm. that I want to remember. Like,
sure.
And then drinking on top of that. I was mm-hmm. an alcoholic for a while. Mm-hmm. And so all that stuff, just I wanted off, but I
Sure.
knew
Right.
that I needed it because of my mental issues that I
Hmm.
had.
Well, mental, your head's attached to your body, and
Right,
mental health is equally important to physical health, maybe even more so, I think. Um,
right.
so thank goodness you found cannabis,
Yeah, yes.
um, and it was later in life when you were an adult that you
Well,
really
yeah, I
found
always
it?
knew that it helped, and I always told people in the stoner circle, they should make this legal. I don't. And then finally, I just got off all those pharmaceuticals. I just smoked weed. I didn't
Mhm,
drink. I didn't do nothing. And I realized that with that, I could cope. Like I could
mhm,
function. I felt normal. My mind didn't race. I didn't have as many flashbacks as I was having.
mhm.
I could go into a public place. I could speak here with you right now.
Nice. Uh-huh.
I was a hermit crab in my room. I didn't come out of my room. Basically, I was
Right.
scared to have
Wow.
a panic attack, so I
Hmm.
wouldn't go nowhere.
Yeah, so cannabis really changed your path because
Yeah,
you're every week, live on Facebook Live with your show Canna Corner and interacting with other people with your activism project. So I'm so glad that you found it. Um,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, and for me too, I was on pharmaceuticals my whole adult life. I was diagnosed with um, a host of things: psoriatic arthritis, psoriasis, asthma, heart disease, and I was on pain pills that were prescribed by the doctor throughout my career working as an occupational therapist, traveling on the road, taking Vicodin because I couldn't function. I had so much pain and
Right,
couldn't function, I thought, without it. And
right,
working in healthcare, cannabis wasn't even an option. In some states, they may have success and feel better, but they will have difficulty keeping a job or obtaining a job because the laws haven't caught up in states. It still presents a lot of issues. So while we're celebrating today these successes, we still have so much more work to do, don't we?
definitely, definitely. Even in places that it's legal, it's not like
Mm-hmm.
people are still being arrested for it. So
Mm-hmm.
we got a long way to go, but I I see a good future. We're moving
Mm-hmm.
forward pretty good. So
With so many patient successes, I'm not sure how people can argue and say that cannabis is not medicine. It's insane, right?
definitely, definitely insane. I mean, there's so much evidence that it's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah. Um, are there things that you couldn't do before besides kind of coming out of your room, right?
Right.
Out of the house. Are there physical things that you can do more now that you couldn't do before since you
Uh,
started using cannabis?
yes, like I can focus on like a television show.
Mm-hmm.
Like before that was like not I couldn't do that. I haven't really tried to sit down and read yet, but that was an issue for me. Like I read on bills and stuff like that, but it's
Mm-hmm.
sitting there reading a book. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't really do that. So I really haven't tried. I need to see if maybe I bet I could focus a little better on that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
And
bet you could.
um just it helps with just my calming my head. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before I was talking about several different things. I couldn't focus on one conversation with you, like I'd be everywhere.
Oh
So,
right.
and it
Mm-hmm.
helps me focus more. So I'd say that. And then just being like I knew you said besides getting out, but that's like the biggest
Mm-hmm.
because getting out on the street with all those people and not like totally shutting down and not being able to breathe and sweating profusely and just being around other people. And I believe that I I was feeling because I feel other people like
Mm-hmm.
I feel what they feel. So I believe what was happening is when I get out in public, I was like feeling their energy and
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling mad, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling sad. And I'm like, why am I feeling? But I believe I finally was able to realize that I was feeling other people's energy
Mm-hmm.
and being able to separate that. But all that, the cannabis opened my mind to being able to find all this stuff out and slow me down to realize that.
Right. Sounds like you're an empath.
Yes, that's the word I was
Yes.
looking for. Empathic.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can relate to that. In fact, we should pull a card. I was asked by our community to pull a card during each episode,
Okay.
and I almost forgot about it. So
Oh
we
wow.
should do that.
Yes.
All right, let's see. Okay, so the card is called Beyond Illusion.
Oh wow.
Um, I think that's an important card for this episode because people have so many illusions about their health and wellness, about what health is,
Right.
what pharmaceuticals can or can't do, what cannabis can do. We need to break down these illusions and look at the
Right.
truth.
Yes. Definitely. I believe that a lot of the diagnosed things that I was diagnosed with maybe wasn't even a diagnosis, like
Hmm.
because I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I'm depressed and stuff, but major depressive disorder they labeled me with, I really ain't like that. Like it
Hmm.
was more I was anxious to have a panic attack, and I would make myself have a panic attack thinking about going anywhere.
Right, right.
So, but
Well, hmm,
so I
yeah, I
believe that a
mean,
lot of people are kind of falsely diagnosed in some things.
I think you're right. I think that some behavior, they like to kind of medicalize it, give it a label, and then once you have the label, then of course they can add
Right.
pharmaceuticals.
Right.
So I'm curious though, going back to what you can do now, you said you can watch television shows. Do you have a
Yeah.
favorite show right now?
Right now, I really like The Handmaid's Tale. I'm into that one right now.
That
And
makes me so anxious watching.
yes,
I can't watch it.
um, well, a lot of the things that she went through, like I went through,
Hmm.
like I dealt with a lot of that violence, and to see a woman go through so much horrible stuff and
Hmm.
still overcome, it's just I
Hmm.
love it.
Yeah,
And
it's
yeah, she
inspiring for you, not anxiety
right.
provoking. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know it's she and not only that, but I kind of see a lot of the things that she did, having to be
Hmm.
real strong and help, because I helped my sister, I raised my so be strong for others, and so
Hmm.
I see myself in her and the stuff that she overcome.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
That's a good way to look at it. I may
right.
have to revisit it. I don't know. I think I get anxious, especially now, because I see in many states women's rights being taken from them.
Yes.
And then when I think about that show, it just seems a little too real.
Oh, it is. It is definitely real, but then it also kind of puts you in that place back in the day. Like we don't realize how bad it was. Yeah, it's bad still now, but we've overcome a lot. And it
Hmm.
kind of lets you see that.
Hmm.
Like it kind of lets you see how bad it was. And yeah, it's still bad. Like for instance, I was talking to my husband one day with this guy in Wingstop.
Hmm.
And this was the first time I ever really experienced this.
Hmm.
But he was talking about his brother or something. And I said, "Oh, yeah, my sister." And he goes, looked at me like I'm a woman. And I just interrupted a man's conversation.
Oh,
And he like
goodness.
literally put me in my place. And
Whoa.
he looked over at my husband and he said, "Aren't you going to correct her or something?" And he goes, "Only one person here is going to be in trouble and it ain't going to be me." And I just went off on that dude. I was like, I can't believe, you would
Mhm.
be like that. Like, I didn't have a right to speak because that was a man's conversation. And
Wow.
my
Yeah,
husband needs
mhm.
to reprimand me. I'm like, really?
I don't think so.
No. And he knew
Gosh.
that. He was like, I'm not getting in trouble today. You're giving me the money.
Hmm. Wow. Well, I guess watching a show like that makes everyone think about these things
Hmm.
more. And you running into him realizing that that really still exists in our
Yes,
society, you
it
know.
does.
And so there's still work to do for women's empowerment and equality, you know. So
Right.
we have so much work to do, Candace. I don't know.
We
And
do. We do.
here we are,
But
patients, doing our best, living with pain every day, really.
Yes.
but managing it with cannabis and still having the passion lit enough that we can keep going. So
Right.
I
Right.
love that about you for sure.
Well, thank you very much. I've always loved your vibe and the all the education that you give, and not just about cannabis, but like
Mhm,
all health, like eating right, and
mhm.
you do a lot, and I appreciate everything that you do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's all connected, and so I hope the show shows those connections. And cannabis creates homeostasis, and
Yes.
all your other health benefits can come from that if you stick to some good lifestyle choices. We're human, but the best you can, right?
Right. Right. Coming up next, we have three amazing patient interviews Wendy and I did. In this segment, I am joined by an amazing woman, Rhonda Agard, a cannabis patient with Holistically for Me. She is an amazing woman, y'all, and I am so excited to have her here. How are you doing today, Rhonda?
Oh, I'm doing good. Life is good.
That's so awesome. I know that you have an amazing story to tell, and I'm basically going to just let you have the floor and tell your story.
Oh, right on. I was 37 when I had a freak accident and I broke my neck at C2. So from C2 to C7 is completely fused with anterior and posterior plates. Um, it took me 2.5 years to be able to walk and talk right. I have no long term or short term, long term memory from the age 37 back. So everything I'm doing, it's like it's new to me. But for over 14 years, I was on pharmaceuticals after 23 neurosurgeries, 5 spinal cord stimulators, a surgery to have the pump put in, and a surgery to have it removed. By the grace of God, the movement and help from my friends, I'm where I'm at today because cannabis saved my life. I no longer take 44 pills a day.
Wow.
I don't have a dilaudid pump. Yeah, I still have bad days, but I have many, many, many more good days than I do bad. How I came to cannabis is the craziest thing.
Yes, let's talk about that a little bit. That is a great way you came across it.
I never tried it, never used it. I shouldn't say I haven't tried it because I honestly don't know because age 37 back, I don't know. So I might have, but I doubt it. Um, I had just had another neurosurgery and I was living with my niece. We shared a house. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't carry on conversations. And just by playing Pot Farm, I got introduced to cannabis, went to my first hash bash. I thought people who consumed cannabis were trolls that lived under a bridge and didn't have a job. And, and I don't judge people because you walk a really, really fine line from venturing to the dark side.
Right.
And thank God I never did. My dope dealer was my doctor who hid behind a white lab coat in the AMA.
Right.
I mean, I used to carry around, and it was on a legal pad. It said, if you pull Mrs. Agard over, please call me. I will come and get her. And that was the chief of police, Homer Chappa, in Swanton.
Wow.
Hypodermic needles would fall out of my glove box. I was a hot mess, but that was legal. And
Right.
when I testified in front of the Senate committee, like I told them, nobody should be deprived of knowing about cannabis, having that as an option for them. I'm no longer a lifer to the pharmaceutical companies, and I sport my medical cannabis shirts everywhere, everywhere. And I shout it loud and proud because I got my life back. Um, Before that, I was in such a dark, dark place that I couldn't see the light.
Right.
And, I thought death would be better. And something just came over me, and I knew I had to change things. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, I didn't know where to begin
Right.
because I knew nothing and I had no normalcy. But now, cannabis allows me to cope with the pain that it does not control.
Right. Right. And it's so difficult. You were telling me that you have to learn to do everything. People don't
Mhm.
realize that these pain medicines, they block um all of your feelings. Like that's a lot of reason people take them is because they don't make them feel the things they don't want to feel, you know what I mean?
Right.
um and so for all those years that you were on all those pharmaceuticals, your body literally didn't feel anything. So you want to talk a little bit about how difficult and how crazy it was to finally be clear headed and feel and
Well, when I went back to the doctor, this was probably, it would have been 3 months after Hash Bash in Michigan. And I hadn't used my bolus, which I could take. It looked like a computer mouse. I could put it on my Dilaudid pump, and I could take extra medication if I needed it.
right.
While he was drawing out all the medication, he's like, "Hey, are you seeing another doctor?" And I started laughing. I'm like, "No, I don't have to." I said, "You always take care of everything. Why?" He said, "Well, you still have medicine in your reserve." I said, "Oh, wow, that stuff is really working." He goes, "What stuff, Rhonda?" I said, "Oh, Dr. Atella, I went to Hash Bash and had to explain what Hash Bash was." And he's just looking at me. And I said, "The first night I didn't partake. I'm like, maybe I don't fit in, or, this is like, I seen things I had never saw before." And so the Hilton was doing educational classes, and lo and behold, Project CBD was there. So I sat in on that and just started to listen, journaling, taking notes. Um, then I started, when I got back home, like I told him, "Oh my gosh, it's working. That CBD is working." He goes, "That's snake oil." I said, "Oh, well, humor me here for a minute." I said, "Can you back down my pain pump? Can you, give me less of a dose? And I want to start getting off my seizure meds because with the injury, it also caused a traumatic brain injury."
Right.
So, and he's just looking at me and he goes, "Oh, that's snake oil. It's never going to work." But he did turn it down. And every month I would go back in, get it turned down, get it turned down. And it took me a year and a half to get off the oral pills, which was 44 pills a day, and another 6 months to get off the pain pump completely. So roughly a year and a half to 2 years.
I'm so glad that you found cannabis, and I'm so happy that you were able to get off of that. What would you recommend to anybody if they're going through a similar situation and maybe they're thinking about this? They're in the same boat that you were in, thinking about maybe trying something different.
You really have to be honest with your doctors, because do not try this alone. Because yes, you can harm yourself. Yes, you can kill yourself. So
Right.
do it, with the help of your physician. You have to be demanding about it. And if he's any type of a doctor who has some compassion and some understanding, he will help you. Mine, I had to fight with. Normally, they'll say, okay, but, he was losing the money.
Right.
And like I told him, "What's the difference between God and a doctor?" Well, God doesn't think he's a doctor. journal, try different strains. Like I'll start with the flower first. If the flower doesn't ease the pain, then I move into the edibles. If the edibles don't work, then I go into the wax, the dabs, the oils. And if all that fails me, Rick Simpson oil does not. And since I have been using cannabis, I see the beauty in life now because I was given a second chance.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rhonda. And
Yep,
you have a wonderful day.
you too.
Joining me now is Dawn Hansen. She is a mother of 6 and grandmother of 2. She has polycystic kidney disease and has found health improvement with cannabis. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. So you sent me information about your health journey, and it actually infuriated me when I first read the beginning part.
Me too.
I bet. So for our listeners and viewers, if you could just explain kind of what happened.
Sure. Back in 2009, my mom and my dad, my father had just passed away and my mother was sick with kidney disease. We didn't know what type of kidney disease. So I went and I got my labs done, and I was a medical provider myself. I did hospice.
Mhm.
And to me, so anyway, they did my labs and I never heard another thing about my labs.
Mhm.
Then in 2012, I was accused of malingering, which means using the state and the state's benefits, and not wanting to do what you need to do to get off the state. So I went back to my doctor because I'd been sick for years and couldn't work. And they ran my labs again, and my labs were for my kidneys were at 19% functioning, both kidneys.
Wow. No wonder why you weren't feeling well. My gosh. You said it's hereditary. So it also is very curious to me as to why they didn't look deeper when you weren't feeling well, since that was in your
Well,
family.
it was my mom, but what it was is we didn't know that she had polycystic kidney disease until after she had passed away.
Mhm.
But after a lot of research in my ancestry, I've actually linked where it comes back to. My mother was 64 when she gave up. She
Mhm.
just gave up. But she was the oldest woman in our family ever
Mhm.
at 64.
Wow.
And if
Wow.
she just a
Goodness.
little while longer, we could have fought this together.
Right. So they did finally diagnose you with it years later. What year was that when you finally received the diagnosis?
In 2012.
Okay.
2012.
A few years later of you being not feeling well and not really knowing what was going on. So
Yeah.
did your journey improve once they actually gave you the diagnosis? Were they
It
able to
didn't
help you?
It didn't, and they weren't. And the problem is that there's a lot of misinformation. I was told I was too small to do peritoneal dialysis, which is where they put a catheter in your belly.
Mhm.
So I had to do hemodialysis. I've had 4 surgeries on my arm. I don't know if you can see that. 4
Mhm.
surgeries on my arm for fistula, and they were killing me. Hemodialysis was killing me. I went for 9 months, and I was walking 4 miles a day the day before hemo and couldn't get out of bed for 24 hours after hemo. They weren't willing to adjust my times and my treatments to what I needed. And so I quit.
Isn't
quit
that,
hemo.
with mainstream medicine, I hear this a lot. Every body is different, right? And yet they expect that every body will fit into their protocols and everything will work just fine. It makes no sense.
Yeah, this is not a cookie cutter. They can't apply a cookie cutter approach. And not to toot my own horn, but I'm not their typical patient. I'm their rock star. I am not typical. I do peritoneal dialysis now after 9 months of quitting. If I had needed the amount of dialysis that they were giving me at hemo, I would have died within a month, 6 weeks.
Wow.
So that tells me that I was right. They were over dialyzing me. 9 months later, I got my PD catheter and started PD here at home. It's changed my life. I've gone back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been working 11 years.
Wow. So you didn't work for 11 years. You were trying to follow their cookie cutter approach to the disease,
Yep.
and you were getting worse. So how does cannabis fit into this? How did cannabis help you?
Well, when I first found out I was sick, I was, 147 pounds. I was a hospice CNA. I was working 69 hours a week at a nursing home, 20 hours a week hospice, and plus private duty. And I just didn't feel right. And I stopped working, and, I went to my doctor and all that stuff, and they put me on Marinol
Mm-hmm.
because I had gone from 147 pounds down to 98 pounds.
Wow.
And I was too small for transplant. And I was denied a transplant because I was on Marinol, because I had developed cachexia. Cachexia.
So because of the Marinol, I understand that there have been some changes with this. I don't know all the details, but typically you can't have an organ transplant if you're using cannabis, though there's not really evidence that's a problem. But Marinol is a pharmaceutical, and was prescribed by a doctor. It's not like cannabis where you get a recommendation. It's an actual prescription. So
Right.
it's curious to me that they would still give you such a hard time about it and not.
The way I put it is, you can't tell me that you can't tell the difference between regular THC and Marinol. If you can make the drug, you can figure out if it's a drug.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole situation is just far beyond me. I know that if I go to Boston, I can get a transplant on medical marijuana. In
Yeah.
Maine, you cannot.
Yeah, things have changed in some states. And of course, until they end prohibition federally, we're stuck with, by zip code, having access to certain things. It's absolutely insane and makes no sense for really healing people. Everyone should have access to the same stuff, when they get sick, so that they can have an opportunity to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Maine, that wasn't available to you for the transplant. And you were using Marinol originally. Did you move from the Marinol to cannabis from a dispensary?
At first I used black market, like everybody else. I
Mhm.
still on occasion use black market. It's much cheaper, about half the price of the dispensary. And I know the person who grows he's my caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I've used both. I've found a lot of relief in it, a lot more relief in using cannabis than in using Marinol.
Mm-hmm.
I've dabbled in cannabis off and on all my life. It wasn't until I got my kidney disease showed its ugly head that I really started looking at it and using it as a medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kept me alive and eating for 10 years now.
Nice. Yeah, when I was showing the before and after photos that you sent me, and it's quite remarkable, the difference between going with the mainstream plan and instead making your own choices for your health.
Yeah.
And the fact that you could get back to work after 11 years is a great testimony to how it's working for you.
It is. It really is. And I'm so blessed.
Mm-hmm.
It has given me back my life. It's enabled me to do things that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do before. And with the pandemic, for people like me who used to be in the medical field and were a little bit older or a little bit compromised, it was very, very hard, very difficult to be the ones that had to sit back and not do anything and not help. It couldn't help.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It just brings tears to my eyes when I think of how badly. I just wanted to be out there helping.
Hmm. It seems
And
like it's in your nature. Hospice work takes very special people to help people through that part of their life. Death and dying is just a part of the life cycle, but to work with that day in and day out, it really takes a special person. So thank you for that work and for wanting to do that.
um, it was my pleasure, always my pleasure to do that.
Well, Dawn, it's really been a pleasure talking with you and hearing your story. I think as we share these stories, we help others because they can see themselves in these stories of health and wellness and health journeys. I'm so glad that cannabis has helped you.
Me too. It's given me back my life, and I'm so grateful.
Excellent.
Same way, Maine.
Yes.
Should be right here.
Wonderful. The way life should be. Well, thanks again so much for being here, Dawn. Be well. Joining me now is Katie Brown. She is a cannabis patient who has multiple health conditions and found some success and relief with cannabis medicine. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, wonderful to see you here. So, Katie, I received your story and it's so profound. I think people really need to know about this because you do have multiple conditions, and one of them was pancreatitis, which is very serious. So,
Yes.
what happened in your case?
I was diagnosed with acute chronic pancreatitis back in about 2014.
Mhm.
They did the MRI, said my pancreas showed about 6 out of the 9 markers for it, and it was just something that I was going to have to deal with, basically. Along with gastroparesis and not being able to eat well,
Wow.
I was just doing really good and really really bad. Couldn't keep food down. At one point, I went several months. I couldn't even keep liquid down.
Wow.
They were talking about putting me on a feeding tube.
Mhm.
And I turned to cannabis. And
Did they offer any medications or anything that was helpful through that period? Because not being able
they,
to eat is really difficult to do anything in life if you're not able to hold
right.
food down.
They tried a few different medications on me to help with like stomach pain and enzymes for, digestion and absorption. None of them worked. And in
Mhm.
fact, they actually increased my nausea.
And so you became a medical refugee, didn't you?
I did.
Mhm.
I'm back in Indiana now because my father got sick, but I spent a few years out in Colorado.
Mhm.
And one of the things that was so magical to me was to have the access to pick out the right products and the right strains that I needed.
Mhm.
And the magical thing that I found, because a lot of the times the concentrates are oil based, I also don't absorb anything if it's oil based.
Mhm.
Found
Mhm.
a place that used honey sticks, and
Mhm.
I started infusing my own honey because it was so simple. I could just kind of hold it in my mouth, even, before I swallowed it. And I just kept getting better and better and better. And
Mhm.
I weighed on, and they were happy for me. And then, you know, basically 3 years later, the MRI no longer shows any markers of pancreatitis. It's gone.
Wow.
Um,
That's amazing. So all the markers were gone, and the only treatment that you were doing was cannabis, and
that's it.
and it wasn't even RSO. It sounds like you were infusing honey and using that
Mhm.
regularly. Mhm. I think
Yes,
a lot of
I think
times people think that they need the RSO for these serious conditions, and it may be true for many, right?
right, right.
But yeah, this is the first I've heard of somebody using infused honey to heal themselves. Great.
I think it's because it was able to get into my gut, to get
Mhm.
to get in there where it needed the healing.
And so you started feeling better, and what were you able to do as eating, of course, right? And I remember reading in your story about how your son pointed out that you could sit at the table and eat with him and how profound that was for you.
The year that we moved to Colorado, we went out for a trip actually before we moved, and he did not know that I was medicating at home. You know, illegally healed. You know, I'd rather do that than be dead. Um,
Yes, yes, I'm glad that
but
you
you
made
know,
that choice. Yes.
yes.
Mhm,
But you know, keep my kid out of it. You know, so when
mhm,
we went to Colorado, we're sitting there, and I was like, look, this is medicine. He was 10 years old at the time, and we were at the hotel, and he's like, you want to go grab breakfast? And I was like, yeah, let's go. And then we were sitting there at the table, and he looks at me, and he's like, we've never had breakfast before because you've never felt good enough to eat in the morning. And
wow.
I almost started crying right there at the table because it hit me. He was right.
Mhm,
He was right. You know, and he deserves a mother that can be functional for him.
mhm. Absolutely, I agree. And, unfortunately, the laws are really unjust. And by zip code, we have some things available to us that is not available to other people. So I think you did what you had to do. And it is, it's upsetting that you have to keep these things from children. But, then you have to worry about, DCF and,
Yeah.
so I think it was probably a wise choice to just quietly medicate and get better, because I'm sure he's thrilled to have his mom more functional and
Yes.
able to do things with him.
I was able to go back. I work part-time. I went back to work part-time in 2018 after 8 years of not being healthy enough to work.
Hmm.
You know,
Fantastic. Yeah.
it's miraculous. You know, it's not anything. I always knew it was medicinal, and I always believed in it. My very first tattoo when I was 21 years old, which we won't say how many years ago that was, but you know, the guy, I've just always known that it's a good thing and people need it, you know, and we've got to just keep working, you know. A lot of my Colorado friends are fighting legislation right now. They've been at the state house that they're trying to eliminate the concentrates.
Hmm.
Patients, those, you know, not only should everyone have a right to them,
Hmm.
because they can buy as much booze as they want, you know, or whatever,
Right.
but
Mhm.
patients need that. They need those products that they know work for them, you know,
Mhm.
and there's so many kids that I met that, you know, had Dravet syndrome and severe epilepsy and severe autism, and they were given a death sentence, and those kids are thriving now years later.
Mhm.
You know, it's nobody should be denied their right to a quality of life.
I agree. And, when they start kind of picking apart the plant and saying you can have this part, but not that part, or, these cannabinoids, but
Yes.
not these, or, it makes absolutely no sense. It
No.
should be based on what works for the patient. And I think people are confused about that, in the
Yes,
legislatures,
I
because
think so too.
there's still so much reefer madness. And of course, many people we elect to office may have these biases from when they were younger, things that they heard and learned in school that were incorrect. And so we have to keep educating. I'm so glad that people are fighting in Colorado for that. And thank goodness you found what worked for you and it was available to you because you made it available to you. And we all have to do that to some extent. We have to be in charge of our own
Mhm.
health. We have to bring up things that we read to the doctor. And if that doctor isn't interested or thinks that it's a bad idea, it doesn't mean that's the end of the line either. You had to pick up
Right.
and move to another state. My hope is, I say this, I think, every show, that prohibition will end federally so that everyone can have what they need.
I hope so too. I want to, it, when that happens, and I'm saying when that happens, because I
Mhm.
believe it's going to happen. I
Yes.
just hope with all my might that the rights are given to the people and the patients and not to the big pharmaceutical companies.
Yes, I hope so too. I'm with you. I think
Yeah.
it's really fantastic that you have actual data showing that your pancreas improved.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we have actual scientific data to show that, testing to show that before and after, the more it's harder and harder for people to argue with that, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, and my entire medical team in Colorado was supportive, and it's in my medical records. Continue cannabis.
well, I'm so glad that you found improved health and functionally that your life is better. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Wendy.
Miss Teddy here with your Food is Medicine Minute. In order for you to be a successful patient with food, using food as medicine, I think I need to give you a few tips on how not to fail in order for you to be able to succeed. One, don't look at it as if you can no longer have this item. I can no longer have sugar. I can no longer eat this way. Look at it differently. Change your mindset. Start with small steps. Give yourself a 30-day challenge. I like to do a 90-day challenge. When I was in AA and NA, we did 90 meetings in 90 days. So the first challenge I did was 90 servings of greens in 90 days. The second challenge I did was a little harder. I did no sugar for 30 days. That's no soda, no cakes, cookies, ice creams, or anything like that. Fruits and vegetables that contain sugar are fine. These are ways for you not to set yourself up for failure. Stay on the outside of the grocery store. Don't go down the aisles. Give yourself small challenges that you can reach, and never ever give up. For more information on food as medicine, please feel free to contact me at Learn From Teddy on Facebook.
Hey everybody, it's Chelsea and Chris.
And this is the Can It Cook Quick Recipe.
The first thing you want to do is get your water, corn syrup, and sugar added into your saucepan, and then we are going to bring it to a boil. We've got it cooking right now. We're going to let it get up to 300 degrees. Chris is going to check the temp for us.
We're at about 210, 212.
Once it gets up to 300 degrees, that's the temperature we want, exactly 300. We are going to remove it from heat and let it cool to 250. Once it gets to 250, that's when we're going to add in our flavoring and our distillate.
It is dropping quick.
All right, so we removed it from heat. It hit 300. As soon as it gets to 250, we are going to get our flavoring added in. And we're going to give it a good stir once we do. We're good.
Are we going to add the tincture or the
Yep, we'll add the flavoring in first. Both of the flavors.
flavor 1, flavor 2, distillate. That's the word I was
That's
looking
the
for.
word.
And then we're going to put in distillate.
And then add in your distillate. Now he is getting the distillate added in.
There we go.
And you can also add food coloring in if you want. The last suckers we made were pretty colorful. It looks like these strawberry ones aren't going to be very colorful. So if you want really pretty colorful suckers, you can add in food coloring. We've got the sticks and the molds, so we're just going to try to pour. I'm going to see if I can do this without making a huge, terrible mess.
Well, if we do, we can fix it.
That's right.
Oh, those are cool looking molds. I like them.
I know, they make the most adorable little bear suckers. They're just so cute. And we also have another candy mold set aside because we'll probably have some extra.
Yeah, you can just use like a gummy mold and...
Exactly, make a little hard candy.
That's
with it.
right.
Here are the suckers. Chris put one of our candy molds in the freezer. We're gonna let these guys sit out for just a little while, and then at the end, we put them in the refrigerator. It just helps them be less sticky.
How long do we want to keep them out for?
I keep them out for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours.
Okay.
It's been about 2 hours. Now I'm gonna stick these in the refrigerator. Here are our suckers. You just pop them out. As you can see, Chris has already gotten into some of them.
They are so delicious.
They look really cute too. So we just keep these stored in the refrigerator.
I'm Dr. Brian Nickel, your cannabis expert for CannabisExpertMD.com, with a music and cannabis pairing for the Wendy Love Ed Show. Wendy's musical guest this week is Kelly Zulo. Kelly and the Invisible Circus. Now, that's a one-woman band where she plays guitar, runs drum loops, plays bass with her feet, and sings her original song lyrics. She's a singer, songwriter, musician, producer, and engineer with almost a dozen projects under her belt while she was working in Nashville. Kelly's 25-year musical career has taken her all over the country, most recently to Columbus, Ohio, where she's appearing at festivals and clubs. I listened to her track, Where to Go. Now that's just a troubadour and her guitar, well, along with the Invisible Circus, of course, singing a upbeat country song with very introspective lyrics. For this, I was looking for a strain with a upbeat feeling that won't really put you down too far into the couch, but should relieve any anxiety you may feel as you wonder where to go. For this, I selected, based on the cannabinoid and terpene profiles to me as always, Natural State Medicinal Sour Tangy. Sour Tangy is a potent strain at 18.5% THC with, everybody say it with me, trace CBD, as most of the strains do have in them. Looking at the terpene profile as we always do to flesh out the headspace this is going to leave you in. Sour Tangy is potent at 2.58% total terpenes. An unusual terpinolene dominance at 0.73% should give you a nice relaxing base to that. Beta-caryophyllene comes up next at 0.61%. Helps with a little bit of depression. Patients that are having nerve pain or inflammation, very useful for that. Myrcene's coming in next at 0.56%. Myrcene's a little bit relaxing and sedating. Has its own muscle relaxant and analgesic properties. Right up next at 0.2% each is linalool and limonene, kind of the uppity and down sections fighting each other there. Hemoline is next at 0.16%, and pinene does show in at 0.08%. That shouldn't be enough to really bother PTSD patients or patients that have some anxiety with cannabis. Sour Tangy, it should be a relaxing strain, shouldn't be overly sedating, and it should be just a ticket for listening to Kelly and contemplating where to go looking for the illusion of magic yourself. For more information on all things medical cannabis, check us out at CannabisExpertMD.com. We're also available under Cannabis Expert MD at YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Now I present to you Kelly Zulo with Where to Go.
I've been feeding a little bird in the snow. Said that he's got a fly to Mexico. Sounded good, I woke up, but I got out of bed. Spun around a couple times, I realized that my magic is missing. Where to go? Where to go to find magic? You can't put a light in a lighthouse. You don't believe that it's lost, 'cause it's magic. Where to go? Where to go to find that? You can't send a knight out to rescue. It defies the laws of magic. There's a logic to magic. So I've been solving game shows from this couch, my foot up on the book of wicked moon forces. It sounds real good to wake up and just snap out of this. I used to look at the ground and it would tie my own shoelaces. Where to go?
'cause it's magic. Where to go? Where to go to find magic? You can't send a knight out to rescue. It defies the laws of magic. There's a logic to magic, yeah. I've been feeding this little bird in the snow. You said it's time you just go back to your world. Your magic, it will wake up when you just don't care. You know the love and the like of it are the same illusions, yeah. Where to go? Where to go to find magic? You can't send a light in a lighthouse and don't believe that it's lost, 'cause it's magic. Where to go? Where to go to find magic? You can't send a knight out to rescue. It defies the laws of magic. There's a logic to find magic. Follow the logic, yeah.
Well, what a great show it's been.
Definitely, definitely. I've had a lot of fun.
I'm so glad you did this with me. How fun. I want to say, as we were recording, Angela brought me, we just got in these mugs.
They're so badass. I love them.
Yeah, me too. For the Wendy Love Ed show. So they'll be up on the WJAE420.com website soon. And we'll be giving some away too. We got a giveaway coming up. So
Awesome. That's great.
yeah, I'm
I
excited.
love 'em.
So we are still here partly due to our sponsors, so we should name them.
Definitely.
Caris Healthcare,
131 Inclusion Gallery,
the Relevant app,
Country Doc Walk-In and Wellness,
Lit Premium Smoking Supplies,
Highland Residential Mortgage,
Purely Natural CBD,
Ozark Authentic,
KJ's Wellness.
Uptown Kitchen and Tap House.
Well, it's been great doing the show with you today, Candace. Where can people get in touch with you?
Excellent. Yes, I had a wonderful time. Thank you for inviting me to do this with you. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of me at thsintl.org, which is the Human Solution International website, or they can go find me on the Human Solution International Texas chapter on Facebook. I have a Candace Dyer page. That's Candis Dyer. And I also am with KM420 Radio. So if any of those places, you can find me.
Excellent, excellent. It's been really delightful. I've enjoyed it. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.